Welcome to the Love Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon. You may know me from Project Love, where we focus on operational excellence, but here we go deeper. We're your go-to for raw, empowering conversations on entrepreneurship and stepping into your CEO role with love and confidence. Each week, we'll explore everything from mindset shifts, leadership, optimal wellness, to efficient systems, all within a community of visionary women like you. Ready to get real about building a business and life you love? Hit subscribe and let's start this transformative journey together. Welcome to another episode of the Love Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Frigon, and today we have a very special guest with us. I am so honored to welcome Paulina Cameron, the CEO of the forum as of today, but when this episode airs, as she is going to be on her next venture. She's also the author of Canada 150 Women, and she has so much more underneath her belt that she's accomplished, which we will dive into today. But Paulina, thank you so much for joining us. I'm truly honored to be able to connect with you today.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Awesome. So let's dive into it. What was your career leading up to stepping into the role of CEO of the forum?
So I've been with the forum for the past 5 years, and it's been an amazing constellation of two of my passions for life. One is elevating and seeing women thrive, and then the other is utilizing business and business ownership as a tool for that. And my way back when background is my first official job out of university was at KPMG. So I worked in finance and management consulting for a number of years. So that's where my business background has come from. And throughout all of my jobs and things that I have done, I've always been very entrepreneurial and had things I've done on the side. So I started and ran a nonprofit organization. I ran a local food delivery business. I wrote a book. I have served on community boards, and kind of the thread through it all has been the interweaving of the business side and the entrepreneurial side with also kind of the values and passions and things I really care about. The role I had immediately before joining the forum was being the Western Canada Regional Director at Futurepreneur, which is an organization that provides loans to young entrepreneurs. So I've been in the space of supporting entrepreneurs in kind of various ways, in many ways, for a number of years. And through all of those periods of time, also been an entrepreneur myself.
What drew you to the forum, essentially? Like, I know that the forum is quite a community. It's very well grounded here in Vancouver, but it's across all of Canada. And I've seen out of it some pretty insanely successful entrepreneurs that have been born and nurtured through that program. So what about the forum was inspiring to you to be able to step into the role of CEO?
So when I was joining the organization at the time, it had already existed for, let me do the math here. It had existed for 17 years at that point, which was amazing because, it's such a trailblazing organization. Like truly 22 years ago, which is when it started, nothing like it existed. And it was born from such a deep passion of wanting to see change and wanting to activate community to support that. And for 17 years had been doing incredible work, kind of, as you said, primarily in BC, though had started already expanding a little bit to Toronto at that point in time. And I loved that the organization had such an incredible, really stood on such incredible quality of community, but also quality of work that it had done. Like the foundation of that was amazing. Like the alumna that have gone through the programs, even already at that point, were outstanding businesses, outstanding women entrepreneurs. And then the folks who were showing up to support the organization and support those entrepreneurs were incredible and continue to be so. And so for me, it was a really exciting moment where the organization had opportunity to really grow and expand that. And I'm a builder and a grower, and I love doing that. But to do so from a place of such a strong foundation of quality and community felt like such a exciting gift and opportunity to do that. And so I joined the team. I think I was the 5th team member at that time. We now have, and we were, this is 5 years ago, so we were all in person, and in Vancouver, and we're now a team of 21 across Canada. We're a virtual first team, and have grown to support about 1,600 women entrepreneurs across Canada a year. And so the community has just really expanded in such a beautiful and meaningful way. And along with that, those who really want to step in and support too. So it's been exciting to take what was such a strong foundation and values and things that the organization stood for and be able to expand upon that and grow it and build it so that ultimately more women entrepreneurs could benefit from it and be supported. As a charity, the forum, it's only a reason for existence is to see women entrepreneurs thrive, and all of the work it does is in support and an effort of that.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about the forum is how supportive it is. Now, I knew about the forum, I had heard about it, but I had been jaded for quite a bit of time from other communities and like networking and all that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's just another group. Like, meh, right? But then I just took the plunge and I'm like, let's just see what it's about. I hear great things about it, but let's try it out. And I can guarantee that it's not like other communities. It's not like other networking opportunities. I find even the team members at the forum are so supportive and open and willing to help you in any way that they possibly can. And I love that so much, the community that you've created and the support system that you've provided, because it's challenging as an entrepreneur. It's very lonesome and it's hard to find that help, to be honest.
Totally. And I just love hearing that. So thank you for sharing that, Jessica. It has felt so important to us that it does feel different, and it feels like it is, created for and by and in service of women. And, that means doing some things differently and like leading with that warmth. I still will remember, I'll always remember we had a woman once come to one of our programs in person, and she walked up to me about like an hour into the program and she just goes, I have been to, world renowned incubators down in the States. Like I've participated in what is considered the cream of the crop. And I have never felt so seen and welcome and supported as I do here in this space. And, I know we can stand on the quality of the speakers that we bring in and the mentors. We know that the impact all of those tangible things will have tangibly on someone's business, on their revenue growth, on their sales, on their growing their team, on the sustainability of the business. And for me, always as important of a metric has been, how does someone who's going through and interacting with our organization feel? Do they feel more confident? Do they feel more connected? And there's so many opportunities for those touch points to come to life. And so I really love hearing that. Our culture, I've always hoped it would feel like the opposite of like super techie, prosy scene, opposite of that, and a place where truly women can identify and find opportunity for themselves to be held and supported. Because you're right, it is a roller coaster, a lonesome journey. All of those things are very, very true, and yet it doesn't. And we can't remove all of those pieces and those things, but if we can take the edge off by creating a container where one can get and feel that level of warmth and support, I think it can make a difference, especially on those hard days.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about your most rewarding moments, things that you've accomplished that you set out to as CEO of the forum, or even just like witnessing what your team has accomplished. Like, what has been the most impactful for you?
Oh, that is such a good question. Hmm. There's some things that come to mind for me that feel like tremendous wins and that have really mattered for the organization. And those include being able to be actually national. And so, hosting both virtual and in person across the country, and having a team that is across the country to support that. Some of the wins that we had around our funding that we received, especially this past year from the federal government to support some of our work, that's been really transformational for the organization. I think for me and like supporting 1,600 women a year just is incredible, to be a component and piece of their journey as they build and grow. And I think for me, what feels really and deeply important is that as we've gone through all of that, as we've gone through the hard, the wins, the growth, all of it, is the team and the culture we have as a team, and that has been so strong and maintained and, run by the team. Really, I always believe that culture isn't the words that you have on a piece of paper on the wall, and it's also not what one person from the top says that it is. I'm saying from the top in quotation marks for those who are just listening. It's not That's not what makes it culture. It's everyone's collective decisions around the way we show up, the words we use, and how we prioritize care within the organization. And for me, I really wanted to build the kind of culture and team where women could truly thrive across all elements, both in terms of their work life, but their personal life too, and be the humans that they want to be the mothers that they want to be, the contributors to community that they want to be, and to not have that compromise our work. And I think our work over the last few years certainly shows that that is possible. And the team has really embraced and embedded that and shown up for that in a really amazing way. So I'm really, really proud of that. And I think, there's two things that we've had team members say that I just love. One of them said, we had someone leave us recently for an amazing opportunity that she has. And she said, gosh, it's been the hardest place to leave. I've never had to leave somewhere and it's hard to leave. And I love that. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, but yes, great. Cause it means we did it right. Like we challenged you in your work. We gave you a place you could be supported and thrive. Like that is a win. And then someone else said that they've never, and this is someone who has worked for a number of decades in various places, that this is the first place that has debunked any like bad stereotypes or perceptions that she's experienced or had around a place where all women work together. And she said, friends are constantly asking me like, how is it really to work with all women? And I just hate that that's a stereotype that's out there, right? And because it doesn't have to be that way. And I just love that over the number of years, the people that have come through our organization now have a new standard for what that is, and now have a new expectation of what it can be, and know that it doesn't have to be any of that.
Absolutely. I love that you bring the team element into that, and you're like, the team, they're really committed to like having this culture and stuff. But I just want to point out that a leader really sets the tone, and it just is a testament to your leadership of the forum. You know what I mean? Like it takes a lot to create and to maintain and to nurture a culture like that, and a lot goes into it. And yes, it does require everybody to be committed to that same goal. But I mean, it's just a testament to everything that you've put in, and the leadership role that you've taken, and the qualities that you bring, the emotional intelligence. There's a lot as a leader that goes into setting the tone for that type of culture within a team. So it's a lot on you as well. I think you've done an outstanding job with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about your experience. What are the key factors that differentiate those who succeed in entrepreneurship and those who continue to struggle with it? Having seen 1,600 women every year for the past long time, what would you say?
I think first what's really important to say is that even access to entrepreneurship is a deeply privileged, it requires a level of privilege. And I think we often don't talk about how much of a difference that makes, and privilege. What I mean by what I mean when I say that is, privilege to access to financial capital, privilege to access to community, privilege to access to being able to not take a salary for a period of time because you have family wealth or a partner, or, are supported by your parents still. There's so much privilege that goes into even be able to start and then continue to be successful at it. And I think it is not talked about enough, because we kind of put it on the shoulders of the person in terms of them being able to do or not do something even, right? And like make it a personal failure or not. But there are so many systemic pieces that are not equal and equitable. And so first, I want to say that, because what I would hate is for someone to feel like, they're doing their best and doing all the right things and it's not working and that it's only their fault. Because so often it might not be. It might be these systemic pieces. It might be the lack of access they've had to this or that, or even, lack of knowledge to be able to speak in financial terms. And it kind of sometimes drives me crazy when people go, oh, well, women just don't know this or that. And I'm like, when have they had the opportunity to access that? Or like a new immigrant to Canada, of course, isn't going to understand how to speak in a system where the bank is speaking. And like, just of course. And so I think that's important to state first. And then, I think another piece that exists is the entrepreneurs that I have seen that have really been able to tap into and build community around themselves. So both like use community. So, not to be able to get through the mindset of you need to know everything and you need to do it all, but rather go, there's only so much I can do. I don't need to know everything, but I can utilize community to my advantage, but also bring people along on that journey. That is really, really a powerful unlocker for entrepreneurs. And then another, I think, is really being able to, and it kind of ties to community, but really being able to tap advisors and mentors who can see forward for you. Because so often, especially in the early stages, you're in the business. You're not working on the business, you're in the business, and you don't know what you don't know, especially if you're a first-time founder. You have no idea, and you don't have that ability necessarily to look forward and access the bigger pieces. And so utilizing a network or advisors or mentors or programs or community who can not only help you see a few years ahead, but who can also bring you into that mindset of growth and thinking what is possible and being able to see bigger vision. Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you kind of start out with that and then get really bogged down by the day-to-day, and that's really natural. And so building in places where you will be places and people that will help you work on your business and not just in your business is really important. I think there's a really important place that I'm not sure I understand. Oh my gosh, Siri keeps thinking I'm talking. I think there's a really important place that finances and understanding how to leverage finances play in the success of a business. So that's both from, quite literally understanding how to manage cash flow to your advantage. I remember there's an amazing mentor, Charles, who did a session for us years ago. And he talked about how there was a moment where the company was like, make it or break it. Like they were at a moment, and the thing that saved them was negotiating better terms with their suppliers. They negotiated longer time to pay, but quicker time to get money in from customers. And that was the reason why they were able to survive a really intense moment. And it's so understanding your finances, how to utilize them, but then also like building the structure around it, because it becomes a roadblock if you don't know how to navigate it. And then finally, what I would say, and this ties back to the very first one around like community and people, but it's the internal people within the business. So really being able to hire and bring in and cultivate the right people at the right time. And that can be really hard, especially through a growing or scaling business. There are sometimes moments where the people who got you to one place won't be the people that can get you to the next place. And so much of it is, there's no such thing as business is only business and not personal, right? Like I think that's a pretty misnomer. And so those are like challenging things to work through as well, but really being able to be clear on those operational plans. What is the plan for the next 1 year? Like, is it written down? Do we know our milestones? Do we know how we're making decisions? And then having a team and the right people and the finances to support that are really important. So that comes from both spending time working on the business and the clarity of it, to then having access and utilizing community mentors, advisors, etc., to support that.
I love that you mentioned, you don't have to know it all, because I feel like every single person I've ever talked to, including myself, you jump into this business and you start running and you're like, I have to know all these things. And then when you don't, and you fail at certain aspects of your business because you're not an expert and you don't understand it, you didn't go to school for it, you were never taught about it, and you're like, I'm such a failure, I'm never gonna be able to do this, like, why am I running a business? But essentially, like, you don't have to be an expert in everything. You know what I mean? Like, hire the experts, use your community. You can't, like, your brain can only hold so much. You can only do so much, right? So like community is so important, and being able to tap into that is like absolutely critical to be able to gain more knowledge, or to gain the right people to bring into your company in order to be able to manage those areas that you're just not, it's not your zone of genius.
Totally. And I think the only caveat I would add is what also we can't do is like ignore it or just totally hand it off to someone. Like I do think what is really needed is to know enough to know what to ask about and like to enough to speak the language and have someone walk you through. Like you can hire, the PR person or the bookkeeper or the or and spend time with them, not only them doing the work, but actually teaching you enough about like the language and the pieces so that because you at the end of the day do need to have oversight and management and leadership over it, so you can't entirely hand it over, but that doesn't mean you are the lawyer. You are working with them, but need to know enough to ask the right questions and know when to push back, and if you don't know, to find out about that, because that will be a block for you too if you're not able to do that, and you could spend so much money on someone and you have no idea if it's even quality or going to work at it. So you do need to know enough. It's like, and that's where I think the community piece really comes in. Is like, you don't know what you don't know, so find out what you don't know so that you can then bring in the people to support the execution of it.
I love that. Now, this ties into my next question. So, in your view, what role does community play in the success of women entrepreneurs, and how does the forum facilitate this? Community has been the biggest like aha awakening that I've had this year, because I've solely been focused on the strategy and the offers and just playing small in that regard, and have completely overlooked the power of community and authentic relationships and whatnot. And it's going to come to a roadblock at one point where you're going to need to shift your focus and really start focusing on building that. So I'd love to know what your view is on that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it has always, in my mind, started and ended with community, because to me, that's everything from potential customers to people who are in your corner cheering you on to people that they know that might be helpful in some area or element of your business, right? Like your neighbor could be the best friend of the person who you're trying to sell to, right? Like you just never know where that comes forward to. And I think, we're human beings. We love being relational with one another. We are bred to be in relationship, right? And so that's really what it is all about. And I think, like community used to be so equated with like networking, right? And really, for me, the way I think about it is it's simply being in relationship with one another and being relational in our work and supporting one another that way. Yeah. So to me, it's both like an unlocker, but I would actually just say like fundamental to, I think, how we can be successful at it. And I think it's also really helpful from just like a personal mindset lens and perspective, because I think if we're going at it alone, it would be so easy to feel like, we're the only ones facing these problems or these challenges. Like it just amplifies that feeling of both loneliness, but also of scarcity. And I think being in community, like to me, when I give back to community, it also makes me feel so much more abundant. And then I can see, like I love when an entrepreneur who's in business for 1 year is mentoring an entrepreneur who's just starting. Like everyone has something to offer. And that reciprocity of generosity allows us to feel the abundance that we each have, as opposed to feeling scarcity in it. And when we feel that abundance, that's our fuel to continue and to go forward. And we only get that in reciprocity and shared generosity with one another, right? And so that's what community really enables us to experience. And to gift one another and to receive and to receive. And like, there's that great saying, who would like to help someone? Everyone raises their hand. And if you go, ooh, are you good at asking for help? Nobody raises their hand. And, the reframe is then you're robbing everyone else of the opportunity to help you, right? Like we know that. And I think the only way we really do experience is that, yeah, when we do step into community that way.
I love it. It's so interesting. I've found for the last little while, it's been very transactional, like trying to build community or trying to build authentic relationships that go beyond just the business has been so challenging from my perspective. I feel like people just, I don't know if it's like online, because I've been in a bubble for quite some time, but yeah, online it feels very transactional. And I'm wondering, like, have you heard of others that are experiencing other types of challenges when they're trying to build like a community, and what has helped them kind of break through that?
That's a really good. Yeah, really good question. And it's interesting you say transactional. So one of like my core values, just as a human, and it's become part of what the 4M's principles is to be relational over transactional. And so as you were saying that, I was like, okay, well, what are the ways that that actually like gets brought to life? And I think the first thing that comes to mind for me that feels like relational and not transactional is giving. I'm like, and giving with no expectation of return, and truly like it's almost like the unexpected gifts or pockets. There's that really interesting reframing is like we need mentors, we need advisors, and we need sponsors. And sponsors are the people who talk about us behind our back without us even knowing it, because they're promoting us for opportunities or like putting our name on the table, which again feels like deeply relational, and I think a way community can activate for us. And so when I think about this question, yeah, that's what first comes up to me is like where can there be like unexpected gifts of generosity that are just given and offered that feel really deeply relational and that hold no expectation. And I think what we put out there eventually comes back. It does take time, I think, to build those pieces, and it can sometimes feel awkward too. Like, let's just call it what it is. It can just feel sometimes awkward to go like, hey, I want to do a 30-minute coffee Zoom and just like get to know one another. And I think the way I sometimes think about it is like, yeah, it'll be awkward for a moment for both of us. And that's okay. Like, it's kind of okay for it to be icky and uncomfortable and kind of messy. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to be kumbaya from the moment and like immediately, right? But I think the long term and bigger picture ROI, if we think about it that way, is really powerful, and just continuing to show up for that will make a really big difference. And I think calling it as it is too. I don't know. My friends and team knows this, but sometimes I just like to call things as they are. I'll be like, well, this is going to be the most awkward 10 minutes we're going to spend together. Or like, I'm really uncomfortable doing this thing and I need to do it anyway. So that's what it is. And it kind of just sometimes breaks the ice a little bit differently too. And I think, I think you're right. I think there's an element of like online and social media that can feel more, yeah, both transactional and very like tit for tat almost in how it goes through. And I think there's like bridging that can happen in beautiful conversations like this, where the offer is there and the time is spent, and then some bridging also in person and in real life, which of course isn't possible if people are globally and spread throughout, but finding elements that can be brought forward in.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned, just putting the awkwardness right at the forefront, because it totally breaks the ice. If you just be like, I know this is awkward, but I'd love to like chat with you and have a coffee date virtually and stuff like that and just get to know each other. And, it just kind of makes it funny. And that just
Totally.
takes the whole pressure like right off.
Yeah, I once had someone, I thought this was the loveliest thing ever. I had someone reach out to me who she's starting her professional career. She's just a couple years at a university and wanted to just ask me about my career and work. And it was so lovely. She had reached out on LinkedIn. And the day before our coffee meeting, she sent me a Starbucks gift card to my email and just said, hey, you might be able to get this delivered to you or not. Like if you, and she had, put it in as a coffee meeting. It was like, I don't know, $5 gift card. And it was the loveliest thing. I didn't go run out, get coffee for that. I had it before, but then subsequently when you used it, I thought of it. And it was just the little thought, like it's really not the big thing, but like those little things that just are a little bit more personal and human. And so I forever joked, I'm like, if anyone sends me a $5 Starbucks, maybe local coffee shop, I'll go local woman-owned coffee shop. But if anyone sends me a coffee gift card, I will meet with them.
I'm going to send you like 30.
Yeah.
That's actually really great, because I often do like coffee Zoom chats and stuff like that. And I just love that personal element, just to show appreciation that they're taking time out of their day to just
Yeah.
have a conversation with me, which, it helps with the loneliness, right? Like you just want to have a conversation with someone because you don't have anybody in the office with you at home.
Yeah, exactly. It's so sweet. And like, it's a biz dev expense. So expense that baby. Right. And then it was, really sweet afterwards. She actually like posted on Instagram about it and was like, here's 3 things I learned and I'm taking away and what I appreciated about our time. And it was just, it cost her literally the $5 it did to send the gift card. The post afterwards was her time of her doing it and reflective, but it was such a beautiful way. And I loved, one of the things I love is when people loop back around things. So I loved knowing, because, you spend time with someone and that's great, and you offer it, and something that always feels good. I actually have a dear friend of mine, mentee turned friend, Jess, who does this so well, but she will, after we meet, and sometimes just randomly out of the blue, but she will email me, it might be a week later, a month later, whenever it is, and go, hey, these are the pieces that after our conversation I changed, or I've been thinking about, or that have really stuck with me, or I've shared with others. She will send it over to me, and the amount of, like, I don't know what it is, maybe it's like both gratification but like delight in knowing that what I was able to share and offer was valuable and helpful, and that then she shared it with others, like, amazing that can continue. And it's not these big, necessarily grandiose things, but it's these little things that make something like that feel more relational than transactional. And so infusing, I think, those pieces as ways that we can maybe transition, even when it is that, like, kind of awkward virtual online thing.
I love that. Yeah, it definitely humanizes everything. Like, it creates more of like a warm feeling and a connection with that person. I love those touches. I'm going to start implementing those things myself.
Love it.
So let's talk about some common misconceptions that women entrepreneurs have when it comes to raising capital. I know absolutely nothing about raising capital. I'm like completely blank slate. I would love to know what exactly you've come across.
So you're like the exactly best person to ask these questions then, because you're going, I don't know. Misconceptions. I think the first one is that there's like a right way to do it. And there isn't, because there's so many variables. Like, some businesses, by the nature of the business, are better suited for a certain type of capital than another. And you asked a question earlier around like what makes an entrepreneur really successful. I think these two pieces are connected, which is, I think when we think about raising money, often what isn't talked about is to what end? Like, what do you want it to do for your business? And what kind of a business do you want to run? And with that, the question that often isn't asked is, what do you want your life to look like? And how do you want to spend your time? Because there's a lot of, if we were to just look at headlines, there's mostly, one version of success that's kind of touted and promoted out there. And where I think some entrepreneurs will trip up is when they are not really rooted and grounded in what their own definition of success is, and can get swept up by all the other ones that are out there and not stay true to their own vision for not only their business but for their lives, and then make certain decisions that aren't congruent or don't support that vision. And so, to come back to the money piece, I think there's all the headlines are always, this company raised this much money and this much money and blah, 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 blah. And that can be great for that person and that business. And what might also be true is that's not great for you and that business. Maybe you are in a moment in your life where, you don't want to be running a business where the investors in your company expect you to grow at a rate of 20x, because that will mean a number of things for how you spend your time and how much time you actually have for your life. You might be in a moment in life where you need to hold as much space for yourself to go through a health journey, or your family, or caretaking responsibilities, or just where you are right now in the moment. And so you might need a different financial structure to support that. And I think we don't often think about it. It's kind of like a puzzle, and it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together, but you have to know what picture you're trying to create. And we more often talk about, well, this is what success for the business would look like and mean, and like the KPIs to get there and the strategy to get there. And we forget about, what is the picture for Jessica, the person? What is the picture of success for her? And how does that puzzle, it needs to be one puzzle. We can't have we can't have Jessica puzzle over here and then a business puzzle over here, right? Like, you're not two people. And so what is the puzzle that the definition of Jessica's life of success and Jessica's business is a part of? And what's the picture? Let's paint that picture of the puzzle, and then let's build the components that go into it. And so on the money side, I think that's a misconception, is that there's one way to do it, or that the definition of success around money looks only one way, and that is not true. I think there's also a misconception that you should go after money when you need it. And what I mean by that is that it's much easier to start building relationships and bring money in before you need it, when you're in a position of strength around it. And so, like, my two tangible tips around that is, firstly, build relationships. If you know you're going down a path, or might envision going down the path of, needing to access a loan or line of credit, which a lot of businesses, most I say would, or equity. So looking at investors, start building those relationships before you actually need them. You need, again, back to the relational versus transactional. Human beings are relational. And so having people that are on that journey and as part of your community beforehand makes it then much easier for them to advocate and champion for you, and for you to ask them for your support when you do need it. And then secondly, the best time to get a line of credit is when you still have a job. And so if you're in a job and you're transitioning into running your business, you can get a job because you have you can get a line of credit because you have a salary, and the banks love giving lines of credit because you have a salary. So if you're going to be transitioning, get as much open credit as you can. Now, don't use it on things you don't need to, obviously. And then, a line of credit is a great tool because you don't pay interest on something you're not using. So you only pay for it when you use it, but it's an open credit facility. So it's there for you to access, because when you then go full-time into your business, you're not yet pulling a salary, or it's a really small salary, you are seen as very risky by the bank. That is not the moment where they're going to go, yes, we want to give you a unsecured line of credit. No, that's not going to happen. It will not happen. You will not then get a credit card for the business right away. Like, none of those things will be there. So the best moment to try to activate, if you know that's the plan and where you're going to be going, is before you actually need to use them.
All right. Now, I have no shame in asking these questions because I just told you I know absolutely nothing, and they might seem absolutely ridiculous to everybody tuning in, but I really just don't care. Now, when I think of raising capital, I think that it's only like for product-based businesses. Like, Hoo Ha was on Dragon's Den last night. Lingerie was on Dragon's Den, I believe. They're all selling products. Bloom, I believe, was on Dragon Den as well. They're all product-based businesses trying to raise more funds to increase their product base and whatnot. But like, for a service provider, like someone like myself who works one-on-one with clients, do I even need to consider raising capital? Like, is it even something that I should even be tapping into?
I love this question. And I think there's no dumb questions. And I'm just so glad you're asking them, because this is the thing that isn't, like, women don't talk about often a lot too, and are afraid to ask these questions. So all of the questions, always welcome. So, I mean, I will come back to, like, why would you need capital? What do you need money for? Right. And again, I think, so let's go to misconception. When you raise capital, what that means is you're bringing on equity. So we're talking about equity. So not loans. Let's park like loans and debt over here. We're talking about equity. What equity means is that you are giving up some ownership in your business in exchange for money. So right now, Jessica, you own 100% of your business. Your business is incorporated under your name. 100% of the business is yours. If you went on Dragon's Den and they made a deal and they said, we're going to give you $400K for 20% of the business, you now own 80%. They now own 20%. You have the money that comes in. That is what the ownership looks like. Now, they're an owner in the business. So a misconception is that you kind of get this money and it's like, quote unquote, free money that you don't have to pay back, but you have someone in ownership in your business. So what that means is they have expectations and they want to see certain things. In the same way in a marriage, it's a marriage relationship in a different way for your business. So they're going, well, we want to get our money back. The way we're going to get our money back is if the business grows at a really significant rate so that it makes more money to pay back the money, either because we sell the business or dividends from the business, or it goes public. Like, there's kind of only a few ways that investor can make their money back. It's not a donation. They're not donating money, right? Like, they own a part of the business. They're not pulling a salary from the business. So they still have expectation. Not only are they getting that same amount of money back, but that they're getting more than they put in. Right? Like, they're not expecting that same 400K to come back. They're expecting that 400K to turn into $1 million. And they want it fast, faster than you even think is possible. So, that's a misconception in that it's, one, free money, or that two, there isn't some accountability and expectation that then brings in. So for entrepreneurs who are going down that path, being really diligent and thoughtful and understanding, again, what are you trying to go after? Why might you need that money? And what does it enable you to do? And then what is the plan to meet those expectations? So to come back to answering your question around like product or service, most service-based businesses are, the inherent structure of the business isn't one that would allow an expectations that an investor would have into the business to be met because of the nature of the business, right? Like a one-on-one coaching can only grow to a certain point, right? Like that's not what's going to be making all of a sudden 20x. Now when I say most, what I mean is there's also some service-based businesses that will transition and have like a technology platform or a way to like build and scale differently, but it not in the one-to-one component. They're not cloning themselves. At least so far as I don't know. And so when there's a moment where there's a underlying technology that can be built and developed, again, that becomes different in terms of the scalability, because really equity-based investors are going after that growth and scalability primarily to build for some sort of way that their money grows. Like it's basically, how's your business going to make my money grow? And different investors will think about it over different time horizons. Some might go, it's okay. I only expect it to grow 3 times over the next 20 years. That's usually called patient capital. And that's really for usually more impact-based businesses and impact-based investors where they're more focused on like the quality and the depth of the business in that different way, or the change, like the systemic or environmental change the business is making, right? Majority of investors don't fall into that category right now. And so for service-based businesses, like the structure, like the inherent work that the business does just isn't one where the expectations and the model that equity investing would be good for is a match. It's just a mismatch, right? And so that's why you see primarily either product-based businesses or technologies, software, like things like that, is because the possibility of that matches what an investor would think about.
Wow. That just blew my mind.
Sure.
Holy smokes. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think what is different though, too, so we parked kind of debt over here, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So like equity as a service-based entrepreneur, you'd really have to ask yourself like, how or why, like, and how would that match, right? And so most, I think, pretty quickly realize, oh, this isn't actually what I need. And so most will then turn to loans or lines of credit, right, to facilitate it. And that's not to say that product-based businesses don't also utilize that. They very much do. Like a line of credit is phenomenal for product-based entrepreneurs to have, because when they're growing their inventory needs, a line of credit is phenomenal to use for, because you can dip in and out as you have demand and need to build more of the thing that you are building. Most service-based entrepreneurs will be looking at either lines of credit or debt. And debt is often used, especially at the early stages. Like, say when you're starting your business or when you're rebranding, it's going to cost you $50K for like the brand, the website, the blah, 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 blah. Often they will take out a loan to help with that and then be paying it off over a longer period of time, right? If they don't already have the cash to support that. Sometimes you might utilize a line of credit if you want to invest into, you need to hire a designer for $5K to put together a packaging or a piece, and you don't quite have the revenue and cash to support that yet, but it will come. So you kind of are supporting it over that period of time. So debt and lines of credit are really great for service-based entrepreneurs who are wanting to invest into a piece or element of their business that will allow them to create new product offerings or to hire someone to then have more capacity to support. So they're really good financial growth tools for the business. I think where it gets tricky is where if your business is not profitable and you don't have a pathway to see how that would come forward, and you take on debt or line of credit to make up that difference or amount, because then you're just going to keep going into bigger and bigger debt, right? It's different than if you're not yet profitable, but you know that, okay, you're going to, hire a designer for $10K who's going to put together the packaging of these 3 course offerings. And you're projecting that if you sell 50 cohorts of these at like $100, you'll not only make up that money, but then you'll be profitable. Like that's a really smart investment because then you can see how you can go from one to the other. But when utilizing these things to like make up the difference because your revenue is below what you are spending or not even yet spending, that's when it can get a little bit tricky.
All right. That definitely clears up a lot of questions that I've had so far, but I could definitely go down the rabbit hole with you, but there's other questions that I want to dive into, so we will continue moving forward. I want to tap back into the community, the networking aspect, because it is a great tool for increasing your visibility, whether you know it's happening behind the scenes or whether it's just expanding your community, your network. So what advice would you have about networking that really helps increase your visibility for someone that may be starting out brand new that doesn't have that community or that network around them?
Mm-hmm. I always like to think, and this is back to a bit of the like abundance piece, is start with what you have. And we all have something. We all have like one person or like one place that we can go to. And I think there's this misconception that like you grow by like these big volumes. And from my experience, but also from what I've heard from others, is that being of value to who you do already have and being in relationship with who you do already have is what then grows ultimately from like that real authentic place. And so I think, if it's that tangible piece of whether you have an offering that you're supporting your community with, your service-based entrepreneur perhaps, and you're supporting, and you want to grow your community, is there a free offering that would be additional value for your existing community that you can gift them with? That will then enhance their experience, which will mean they'll have stronger testimonials, higher referrals. Can you incentivize those referrals? Can you recognize and reward them? So I like to start first from the place of where you are and what you do have, because I think that is, word of mouth is so powerful. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. It is so underestimated. I think it's underestimated because it's seen as like it's not posting on a platform that has 10 million, but your word of mouth starts with 10. But we're again back to relational human beings. I trust you more than I will some random account I follow, right? And so you have to go where there's first trust, because that will have the stronger. It's why there's so many conversations now around micro influencers, not just the big, and how there's a fatigue around celebrity big pieces. People are more likely to trust the micro people they are engaged with and follow with. So that's I think what I would say is the first one. And then I think what resonates with me, I think everyone's different, but what resonates with me is those human elements and people really being in dialogue and conversation that way.
Amazing. Now, looking ahead, before we dive into what's next for you in this next chapter, which will be unfolding in early 2024, what emerging opportunities should we be paying attention to, especially in this post-pandemic landscape that seems to be somewhat solidifying a little bit now?
What do you mean in terms of opportunities?
Like opportunities to connect, opportunities to grow our businesses, to expand.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll do a shameless plug for the forum here. And I realized I never came back to your question around like, how does forum facilitate community and those pieces? So this is coming out early January, which is awesome. So the forum has some amazing community programs that are coming out in February, both in person and virtual, and in person in Vancouver and Toronto. So for national folks, there are a couple of opportunities to engage. We have amazing entrepreneur summits that are coming out in each of Vancouver and Toronto, and our semifinals for our pitch program, as well as the weekly connect. So one of the ways that Forum facilitates community is formally through our programs, there's some cohort-based programs. We have a mentorship program, which is a one-on-one mentorship program. And then there's this like beautiful pocket of the internet on Wednesdays at 11 Pacific that is free and on Zoom. And I know you've experienced it. It is an hour of what I think is like the most wholesome hour on the internet. And it is entrepreneurs coming on and sharing a win, a challenge, something they want support with, just where they're at. And the space is held for that dialogue and conversation. And I mean, I would love, Jessica, you can share how the experience has been from you, but for everything I've heard from entrepreneurs, it is a place where they just feel so deeply seen and supported. And so we activate it in like formal ways, but also I think pockets like that are such beautiful ways that it can be accessed freely and really accessibly. And again, back to the, it can feel awkward if you're coming into something like that for the first time ever. the good news is there's a team member that's on there that goes, okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's your prompt. Like I always think, mentorship programs, some people are like, oh, whatever, we can just LinkedIn message someone. I'm like, yep, you can. Do you? Do you though? And do you get a response? And I think part of it is because we want to feel like held and supported. And so formal programs or formal spaces, facilitated spaces, remove some of that and make it easier so that you can show up and follow a flow and a bit of that to take that edge off so that you can then be more in the relational.
I love that. And I can definitely attest to the fact that the weekly sessions are very welcoming, and it might be nerve wracking at first, like an introvert myself. I'm like, I don't know what I'm stepping into. Like I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, but it was extremely welcoming, very easy, very safe space. Everyone was very, very nice and open and willing to help. And just, yeah, I highly encourage it. And the mentorship program is fantastic. I mean, it was paired with Amy, and I adore her, like absolutely adore her. She's such a wonderful human being. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just such a great community that really just goes beyond what is out there, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love that. Now, let's talk about what's next. Let's talk about this next chapter of yours. I'm so sad that you're leaving the forum, but very happy for you for this opportunity.
Yeah. Part of me feels that way too. I'm like, can I clone myself? Can I leave a part of me here and there? And I think, and we do say this at the forum, once part of the forum, always part of the forum. So I will be at all the things and showing up in all the ways and supporting in all the things. And, I think it's been really interesting going through this experience of transition because it's been also so connected to my identity as a person. And I had to numerous times sit myself down and be like, yeah, you are still Paulina, and a title does not make you you, and you can still show up for the things and have the conversations about all of it and support women in other ways. And it's been interesting to go through that identity transition around it as well, and to really remind myself that a title is not what determines who you are and what you value and what even how you spend your time in that sense, right? And I'm so excited to be supporting the organization and continuing it to see amazing ways. And we'll be number one fan and number one person to always answer anyone's phone calls from the team and just support in all the ways and hopefully go to all the events. Yeah. And then I'm really, really excited for what I'll be stepping into next. And, I've always thought that it would be a super magical trifecta of something that would have to take me away from the forum because it is just so great and the team is so fantastic. And that trifecta for me would be that it's a woman-led business with a really strong culture, that the business is at a really important growth and big growth opportunity because I am a builder and grower and just get really energized for that. And that what the business does is something that I can really connect with and feels meaningful to me. I am not, the person who can just kind of sell anything or whatever. I do care that the way I spend my hours and my days is for something that I can really feel connected and is meaningful and fulfilling to me. And so I'm excited to share. And gosh, this is the first time I'm saying it publicly aloud somewhere. So this recording needs to go into a vault for a couple weeks. But I am joining an incredible business called Flightographer. And the founder is Nicole Smith, who's started the business about 10 years ago. And I've actually known Nicole for a number of years because she used to be one of my board members, is a forum alumna of many of our programs, is a speaker as part of our programs as well. So folks can learn from her. She's incredible. And the business is at a really exciting opportunity. And I am just so eager and stoked to dive into the building of the next phases of Flightographer. I've had the pleasure and honor of meeting a number of her team members. And, I like to think I have a pretty good bullshit radar, and her team just seems incredible and really collectively live the values, which feels so important to me. As we talked about today, relational and culture is deeply important. And they just are such incredible human beings and deeply passionate and smart and driven. And what the business does to me feels so meaningful. So it's all about supporting, creating, capturing memories that we make. And so it's an incredible platform that if you're going traveling with your family to Portugal next year and you want to capture those moments together, you can seamlessly book a local photographer who not only will they take the most stunning photographs for you, but also go and, hey, here's this hidden gem and let me do this. And I know how to make your kids smile and look great in this photo. Don't worry. And it's just seamless. And, to me, I love travel. I grew up in Europe, and travel has always been a part of my life because it feels like the ultimate way to experience this world that we're a part of and to get to know new cultures too. But I will say it's also deeply meaningful to me because I've really, I don't know if it's like the getting older thing or having children as well, probably, but I feel the preciousness of time and how we spend our time and the value of that, and anything that we can do to capture and celebrate and feel more in the moment. Like I really value that feeling of presence and of
Mhm.
cherishing the moments and experiences that we are in, whether it's, sitting on the ground folding laundry or being on a beach in Portugal. And I just love that this business supports and enables that. It actually frankly feels to me like the best antidote I know to fast consumerism culture, in a way that I think we can just all benefit more from, is investing into those experiences. And so that is my deep point of connection with also what the business is. Yeah.
That's amazing. I've heard nothing but stellar reviews of Flightographer. And I mean, I see Jillian Harris. She uses it all the time when she goes on vacation, and their work, even though it's all individual photographers, absolutely stunning. There's a consistency of the level of quality that they produce. And
Mhm.
yeah, this is fantastic. Congratulations on this incredible opportunity. And I'm sure with your support, they're going to achieve their next level of growth.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I think it's really cool what you said there, actually, they're individual photographers and the consistency. And I think what most people don't know, because they just wouldn't, is that there's such deep, actually, community building that happens for the photographers. And again, we talked about community so much, but there's a whole team within Flightographer and an incredible leader within the team, Michelle, who's dedicated to the actual experience of the photographers and building community and learning and education for them. And the photographers meet up. There's global meetups for them. And there's a whole community that actually is there to also support the photographers, which I just think is so phenomenal. And, they're entrepreneurs as well. Like the photographers themselves are entrepreneurs too. And I think it's so cool that this business is also supporting other businesses and entrepreneurs that way. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so happy for you. That seems like a perfect fit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for connecting with us today. I'd love for you to take a moment to share where people can connect with you online, or send you an email and maybe connect for coffee, whatever is best suited afterwards, because you'll be gone from the forum when this airs.
Yeah. Yeah. Send me all the coffee. So you can find me on LinkedIn and my email is there, or just shoot me a message there. I'm also on Instagram at Paulina A. Cameron. And you can follow the forum at the forum CA and Flightographer at Flightographer. Yeah, that's how you can be in touch.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Paulina, for joining us, for sharing incredible insights and advice for those that are looking to build community, that are looking to, learn more about the capital raising and just everything else that we've talked about. It's been such a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you, Jessica. And your questions were fantastic. I really loved that you asked such a range of questions and went for it with the financial one too. That was fun to get to talk about and do. And I have no doubt it will be helpful for so many others. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for joining us today. Your presence truly elevates Love Unplugged into a home for freedom-driven women who aspire to be visionary CEOs. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us bring more impactful conversations to our community. Let's continue to grow this empowering community together. Until next time.